Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Monday, June 26th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Indiana game is in 68 days. The game against Michigan in 152 days. It was a very busy recruiting weekend around Columbus. The Buckeyes had a number of official and unofficial visitors this weekend and had a couple commitments as well, at least a couple as of the time we're recording this. We'll see how that holds up through the next 24 to 48 hours or so. But four-star cornerback Bryce West, four-star tight end Demarion Witten, both from Cleveland powerhouse Glenville. They are both members of Ohio State's 2024 recruiting class now. So we will, if you want some more details on both of those commitments and what they will mean for the Buckeyes and why they were really significant additions to Ohio State's 2024 class, Tony Gerderman and I did instant reaction shows for both of those commitments. You can find those in the Buckeye Weekly podcast feed or on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. So, and if there are any more commitments that happen between now and, well, whenever, you can find the additional commitment instant reaction shows there as well. So, all right, so that covers this weekend's 2024 recruiting news. Now let's talk a little 2025. Marc Givler of BuckeyeHuddle.com is down in Florida, in lovely and balmy Bradenton, Florida, this weekend for the Under Armour Future 50. Marc, I guess before we start diving into specific players, just let people know a little bit about who's going to be at, which type of players are going to be at this camp, and what's the, is this exclusive? Is this anyone can come? What's the deal with the Under Armour Future 50?
Yeah, I mean it's media and parents only. I don't think they let I don't think the public was let into this, but it's 50 of the top juniors in the country, so class of 2025, and it's a 1 day, really it's a 2-day event. There's kind of a media day was on Friday, and then Saturday. They did the drills and one-on-ones in the morning, and there was a 7-on-7 in the evening. So it was a great weekend. These camps are really fun to cover because it's not like the Ohio State camps where we're trying to find 10 kids in a field of 500. At this camp, it's just 50 kids. They're all high-level players. They're all SEC, Big Ten type of players, and so they get a lot of reps going against each other. So it's a lot of best on best. So. And the way they staggered it, I thought was really, really good. This was one of the best camps I've covered in a while. Just the way they organize it, and just kind of the opportunities for media, and also the opportunities for the kids to kind of showcase themselves.
All right, so let's talk about a few of those kids. Let's start with London Merritt. He's a 2025 edge rusher out of the state of Georgia, and sounds like he was impressive during your chance watching him. What did you see out of him, and where do things stand with him in Ohio State right now?
Yeah, he won the offensive line versus defensive line challenge, so he was the MVP of that. He got kind of stood up on his first rep and then proceeded to win 5 or 6 in a row pretty convincingly. Just a really good mix of pass rushing moves. I've seen a lot of London. He camped at Ohio State this month. We saw him practice on our Southern Swing Tour in May, and we saw him at the Under Armour camp in Atlanta back in the winter. So we have seen a lot of London Merritt here this offseason, but he seems to add new pass rush moves every time I see him. He's not just a guy who is just straight speed off the edge anymore. Or he's a guy that's developed a really good quick inside move. He's a guy who's developed a lot of strength. I think he's getting a lot bigger and stronger. So he's able to kind of muscle through some of these linemen when they get their hands on him. So I just thought it was a really dominant performance, and we have video up on the YouTube channel for anyone who wants to see, and there's also a story on him on the front page for anyone who wants to read that. But just a really dominating performance, and Ohio State's in a really good spot right now. He's visited a couple times this offseason. He's going to come back in the fall for a game, and really loves Larry Johnson, and was kind of joking with me. Him and London's dad and Ryan Day hit it off. I guess they both share a love of sneakers. So that was good on the last visit. So Ohio State's in a really good spot there right now.
All right. Well, that's you would assume Georgia would be a tough place to pull guys out of, and nothing is final yet. But Ohio State pursuing Edric Houston in the 2024 class, London Merritt in the 2025 class. They could pull 1 or 2 of those guys out of Georgia. That would be a pretty strong pull out of a place that is not necessarily all that easy to get guys. Now that Georgia has the sleeping giant has awoken in the last couple of years. Next guy I want to talk about is Naeshaun Montgomery. He's a wide receiver, again, class of 2025, because this is all juniors. And before the show, I asked you, now, is he a 5-star? And you said, not yet. So I'm going to take that to mean that Naeshaun Montgomery was pretty darn good. And since he's a 5-star receiver, he probably texts with Brian Hartline somewhat frequently.
I don't know how you'd watch him this weekend and not think he's a 5-star. I know I'm there with a lot of these regional national guys from the recruiting networks, and I think they were all pretty impressed too. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where his ranking goes from here. He's been kind of a fringe top 100 player in these early rankings. I think he's much better than that. That's a guy that, there aren't many 25s yet that Brian Hartline has taken a strong liking to, and this is one of them. So this is definitely one to watch. He said his best relationship right now is with Brian Hartline. He's going to try to get up for a visit, and it's just kind of a matter of when that's going to happen. He's looking at that week in July, at the end of July, that it opens back up a little bit. He's going to try and get up for that. If not, though, he's going to probably have to push it for a game visit. But really high on the Buckeyes. It's fascinating on two fronts. One, I keep wondering, because of how well Hartline's recruited in 23 and 24, where he's essentially stacking far and away the two best wide receiver classes in each of those cycles. Like, does 25's got to take at least just a little step back, right? Like, some of these guys have to look around and be like, well, I don't know, this might be easier over here. And sure enough, there's this Naeshaun Montgomery pops up, and he's like a Carnell Tate type. He's an absolute stud. He's a top 20, I think, player in the country, top 25 type of player in the country. And Ohio State's going to have a real chance here. And so I don't know. Maybe this doesn't slow down. The other fascinating thing about him is he's originally from Rhode Island. He's only been in Florida for a year. He's at Cardinal Newman in West Palm Beach. But coming down from Rhode Island, and he's only been a wide receiver for a year. So he was a quarterback before. And that part blew me away, because the way he's able to separate already and just create space with his route running was absolutely special. I've seen a couple guys, like I've seen Quentin Simmons in Ohio, who's a similar type of guy who has only been a receiver for a year. And I think Quentin's Ohio State good, but even Quentin doesn't run routes the way Naeshaun runs routes yet. I mean, that is just unbelievable. He's only been a receiver for a year. It's impossible to believe. Once you guys will see the video I put up from the event, it'll be impossible to believe that he has only played receiver for a year.
Yeah, that's really intriguing. If you have the ability and the physical tools, and you're just barely starting to scratch the surface in terms of, technique and coaching and all that kind of stuff. I mean, boy, what could Brian Hartline do with someone like that? I'm already looking forward to calling him Nishan Coleman at some point. That's 100% going to happen for all you old school Ohio State basketball heads out there. Next up, Fahim Delane. He's, speaking of places where Ohio State has had success in the past, Good Counsel, Maryland. They've pulled some talent out of there over the years. Keandre Jones, the linebacker, a few years ago, and they're looking at someone else there in one of the coming classes. He is a safety, so we always talk about the Jim Knowles safety-driven defense. So this is a spot where they're going to have to pull someone. Does he have a specific role that you view him as potentially slotting in for Ohio State? Is he the nickel? Is he a deep safety? Is he kind of the strong safety? The boundary guy, the bandit in Ohio State's lexicon. Where does Fahim Delane potentially fit in for Ohio State?
We're going to talk about a few other guys that I've already seen, and I kind of were as advertised, or guys I kind of saw, got what I expected out of them, or wasn't particularly surprised just because I knew how good they were previously. But other than Naeshaun Montgomery, this was my other big surprise of the weekend. I thought he was incredible. He had a couple interceptions during 1-on-1s and 7-on-7. I mean, I think he's probably a deep free safety, but he's 6'2", he's like 195. He can play anywhere and excel. He was so good in 1-on-1s. And the thing he was doing in 1-on-1s that really impressed me was there were 2 or 3 reps, and this can be dangerous in 1-on-1s. You can look really bad, and he got away with it, where you could tell he wasn't guessing. I mean, before the receiver even made his cut, he made the cut before the receiver made it. And so he picked up something watching these receivers, and he was jumping routes. He had, like I said, he had an interception. He had another one where he, caused enough trouble for the quarterback that was incomplete. And the instincts were tremendous. And then again, you get the interception in 7-on-7, and it's just like, this guy just finds the football. And with great size. He's a great kid. He's a good student from what I'm told, and big personality, but just one of those kids that you're like, man, I could see that kid being like a 2-year captain somewhere in college. And so I thought he was tremendous. That one's going to be a little more of a battle, but Ohio State's very much in it. He gave me a few schools, and Ohio State was one of them. So we'll see where it goes from here. But he has visited, and assuming he's going to be back again in the fall.
So we just talked about a couple guys who made very good first impressions on you, at least first in-person impressions on you. Now let's talk about a guy who we have seen before, who made a heck of an impression the last time. That is running back Jordan Davison. He is regarded as one of the top running backs in his class. He is someone who is very interested in Ohio State. What did you get to see out of him this weekend, and anything new on him and the Buckeyes?
Yeah, so, first of all, I think we already knew how good he was, and, he's ranked by some places as the number one running back in the country in 2025, and, that's perfectly justified. What jumped out to me was in one-on-ones, he was 1A, 1B. He was one of the 2 best running backs in one-on-ones. And so you hear that, and it's like, this is he's 207 pounds, so he is not a scat back. He's not a third down back. He's not an all-purpose back. He is a big-time, like, bell cow, every down back. So as I posted kind of on our site, it was almost ridiculous that he was that good in one-on-ones. His build should not allow him to have had the success that he had. So that was one area where I was super, super impressed. The only other running back I thought that was nearly as good as him in one-on-ones was Anthony Rogers, who is very appropriately nicknamed Turbo because he can absolutely fly, but he's 5'8", 185 pounds. So you expect, he's got to be dominant in those types of situations out in space, or, what is he? So that's his game. This isn't really Jordan's game, and they don't throw the ball to the running backs at modern day very often because they have so many good weapons at receiver, and so that really impressed me. But as far as Ohio State, right now it's Ohio State, Georgia, and Texas. Those are the 3 which, if you want to look at that and say, oh no, you're fighting for Georgia, for a running back, and we've lost some running backs to Georgia in the past, and if you want to take the glass half empty approach, that's fine. But I would take the glass half full approach here. I don't think he's staying in LA, and modern day has been a huge USC pipeline. So the fact that this looks like he's going to leave the state, I think is fantastic news for Ohio State. He's already been up a few times. He told me they're trying to get him back at the end of July. He was just on campus a couple weeks ago. I don't know if he's going to make that cross-country flight again at the end of July, but let's keep an eye on that. But if not, he'll be back in the fall for a game, and his parents were both very impressed with Ohio State on their first trip to Ohio State in June. So a lot of good things going there.
Yeah, that 2025 recruiting class at the running back position is going to be real interesting because there are a lot of big names that have Ohio State at or near the top of their list, and you can't take them all. You're not going to take 4 or 6 running backs in that class, so we'll have to see how that all shakes out. One last thing I did want to quickly hit on. Ohio State obviously accepted a commitment from Tavian St. Clair last week, so they have their 2025 quarterback. Ryan Montgomery from Findlay, the younger brother of Luke Montgomery, the Ohio State offensive lineman. He is the only Ohio player there at the Under Armour Elite 50 this weekend. And you got a chance to ask him a little bit about where things stand with him and the Buckeyes. Is that just totally dead in the water? What is the latest? With Tavian St. Clair already in the class, is there any chance that Ryan Montgomery ends up as a second quarterback in Ohio State's 2025 class?
There's a non-zero chance. Is it a particularly high chance at this point? No, I don't think so. But, Ryan told me he and his family are going to sit down and kind of think about whether that's an option. And he said him and his family are going to kind of pray about it and just, talk to some people and just kind of try and figure out if that's something he's interested in doing. He had a good conversation with Ryan Day after the Ohio State 7-on-7 camp this past week, where he was kind of informed, like, hey, Tavian's committing, and, Day told him he would still take his commitment if he wanted to be part of a 2-quarterback class. And so that's got to be something he digests. I think the immediate reaction is going to be that he doesn't want to do that. But at the same time, he is not really looking to decide until after the season. Let's see how the next 6 months go. Maybe some other opportunities that are out there right now change. Maybe some circumstances change, whether that's a quarterback domino that we see every year falling that, maybe he doesn't like, or maybe a coach, gets a new job here in January or February. I mean, there's a lot that can happen in 6 months. And so, we'll revisit it then, I think. But I think right now it's it's not 0%, but it's not likely. And personally, I think Georgia and South Carolina are probably out in front of the pack. I think Michigan's in there as well. And then from there, it's like, okay, how do you separate those three? And, there's going to be some things he's looking at there. Georgia's taking 2 quarterbacks in 24. So while he may not be in a 2 quarterback class at Georgia in 25, he's got 2 right in front of him. So how does that impact things for him? Michigan, it kind of speaks for itself. I know he really likes Michigan. I know he really likes the coaches there, and I know they've made him a priority. But, what's Bryce Underwood going to do? Is he going to leave the state of Michigan? And the elephant in the room, can he make that decision to go to Michigan with the family tie to Ohio State, as growing up an Ohio State fan and everything else? So that's something to consider there. And I actually think South Carolina's got a bit of momentum right now because of those 2 situations with Michigan and Georgia.
Well, that'll be an interesting one to continue watching, and obviously, like you said, a long way to go till early signing day, still about 6 months away. So lots of time to get all that stuff sorted out. Lots of time for Ohio State to continue building its 2024 recruiting class. As I said earlier, by the time you hear this, they may have added someone else. So there's maybe another one on the way at some point in the next day or 2 or week or whatever it is. But whenever it happens, you can find complete coverage at BuckeyeHuddle.com. You've had lots of coverage of all the different kind of news. Great reporting from Alex on the visits from this weekend. Marc, obviously, down there at the Under Armour Future 50, talking to a bunch of really high-profile 2025 targets. Great reporting there on our huddle board at BuckeyeHuddle.com for our members. And as Marc said, you can watch some of those highlights right now. London Merritt, you want to watch London Merritt, those pass rush moves that Marc was talking about? You can see that on our YouTube channel. You want to hear directly from London Merritt? And a bunch of those other guys we've talked about, you can do that on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Lots of great content there that you're not really going to find anywhere else. So Marc has been basking in the sun in Bradenton, which is it's generally about 150 degrees this time of year down there. So this is if he's sweating it out down there, it must be for a good reason. And there's a lot of players we didn't even get a chance to talk about here that you can find coverage of at BuckeyeHuddle.com and at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.